Hi, my name's Eric, and I'll be reading you selections from the e-edition of today's Cape Cod Times. Today's date is February 24th of 2025. It's a Monday, and we'll start with the weather. Today across the Cape and Islands, partly sunny skies, high of 42 expected. Tonight, a low of 36 in the overnight. Tomorrow, Tuesday, variable cloudiness with a high of 50 and a low of 35. On Wednesday, partly to mostly sunny, high of 49, low of 32. On Thursday, cloudy and windy with a couple of showers expected, high of 46, low of 36. And on Friday, high of 45 and a low of 18 with morning showers, otherwise clearing up. So we have a very warm week compared to what we've been through in the last couple of weeks, actually last month or so, coming up with 50-degree weather expected on Tuesday and Wednesday, even on Thursday, and then a little bit of rain, and it'll clear on Friday. The sunrise will happen at 6:23 a.m. It'll set at 5:26 p.m. We'll have 11 hours and 3 minutes of daylight. Now heading to the front of the paper, where the news and the lottery results are kept, and we read the lottery results because somebody asked for them. If there's something you would like read to people who are blind or print disabled, you can email us at info@audiblelocalledger.org or call us at 508-539-2030 and we'll consider reading it. And if you miss any of the information that we share, you can always go to audiblelocalledger.org, click on the Listen tab, and catch up on a week's worth of our newspaper readings in our fully disability-compliant website, audiblelocalledger.org. We also keep a wide variety of periodicals and literature up there for your listening enjoyment. Those are there in perpetuity. We update our grocery guides there every Friday, so you can find out what is on sale at the supermarket. All free for people who are blind or print disabled at audiblelocalledger.org. Now, for the latest lottery results, we go to masslottery.com because the Cape Cod Times goes to press too early to give you the late night results. And if you cared enough to ask for them, you certainly deserve those. So for the numbers game of Sunday, February 23rd, in the midday drawing, the results were 5, 9, 6, 1. Again, yesterday's midday drawing for the numbers game, 5, 9, 6, 1. In the evening drawing of the numbers game for Sunday, February 23rd, the numbers were 3, 5, 8, 4. Last night's evening drawing of the numbers game, 3, 5, 8, 4. Mass cash results for Sunday, February 23rd, 2, 3, 5, 20, and 28. And Lucky for Life rounds out our lottery results for Sunday, February 23rd with 1, 18, 43, 44, and 46, with 7, the bonus number. Good luck to all who play. Remember us if you win. The headline above the fold, if there was such a thing in a digital newspaper: cell phones and dress black uniforms. Mass Maritime Cadets come home, by Steve Heslip. The Patriot State's final day at sea started as any other. The Reveille announcement piped across the ship at 6 a.m. Saturday. Block Island and its 5 wind turbines passed by the Patriot State's port side as cadets made their way down to their last morning formation of the Mass Maritime Academy's winter sea term. Unofficial ship artist Alex Flederjan was getting last-minute requests for his limited edition Sea Term 2025 shoulder patch. By 8 a.m., cadets had headed out for Field Day, a full day of ship-wide cleaning before docking back on campus late in the afternoon. The vessel had set out to sea on January 11th with more than 600 staff members and cadets aboard. The port calls included San Juan, Puerto Rico, Charleston, South Carolina, St. Thomas, Virgin Islands, and Tampa, Florida. Timing's critical for docking the ship back in its berth. It must be at slack high tide and wind a maximum of 15 miles per hour. The target time on Saturday, February 22nd, was 5:30 p.m. Heading into Buzzards Bay, the bow line handlers were using a sledgehammer to break up ice on one of the ship's lines. The pilot came aboard the ship at Cleveland Ledge Light. He would guide the ship through the Cape Cod Canal, out into Cape Cod Bay, and then back through the canal, arriving at the pier. The ship can only dock coming in from the east. Patriot State sent a welcoming horn blast passing the campus at around 2:30 p.m., where well-wishers had already gathered. The ship slowly wound through the 7.4 miles of the canal and out into the bay. Two ships heading south were given permission to pass ahead as the Patriot State did several large loops. Cadets flowed out of the berthing area in their dress black uniforms, lining the rails on the starboard side as the ship passed the Sandwich Boat Basin, their cell phones busy providing real-time updates to parents and friends with their location on the ship. A person looking down from the Sagamore Bridge sidewalk got a hearty greeting from students. The ship glided underneath the railroad bridge right on time. Senior Cadet Gabriel Caluro from Orleans, fresh off passing his Celestial Navigation final the night before, was able to find his parents for a hearty greeting from the bridge deck. The wind had picked up to 17 miles per hour, so docking would be along the state pier. Line handlers at the ready, the ship's thrusters eased the new vessel alongside, and line handlers took in the first line, securing the stern. The gangway crew now was the most watched group on the ship. The metal ramp was cantilevered into place. The hard part, getting up a safety netting in place before anyone could leave the ship. The line grew long on the quarterdeck, sea bags slung over shoulders. The top 3 cadets were the first down the rungs, followed by staff. Then a non-stop stream of cadets for almost 45 minutes as each class made their way ashore, down the long pier, to be welcomed home. The ship glowed into a cold night, towering over historic Flanagan Hall as the crowd dispersed. Its maiden voyage complete, 8,202 nautical miles, and over 500 cadets now well on their way to careers in the maritime industry from state-of-the-art training aboard a brand-new training ship. Our next headline, Healy pitches change to trade school admissions, by Chris Lisinski of the State House News Service. The Healy administration moved to overhaul the way vocational and technical schools admit students after years of criticism that the system excludes applicants from certain backgrounds. But some advocates who sought the changes are concerned the proposal will lead to the same discriminatory selection pattern. Department of Education officials plan Tuesday to present new regulations requiring career technical schools with wait lists to use lotteries when selecting students, a shift from the status quo in which schools can select students based on grades, attendance, and discipline records. Demand for slots in the programs which train students in many high-demand trades continues to outpace supply. Reform supporters have argued for years that the existing admissions process disproportionately leaves the limited slots out of reach for students of color, English language learners, students with disabilities, or those from low-income families. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education is committed to all students having equitable access to career technical education, and these proposed regulatory changes are designed to advance that goal. Acting Elementary and Secondary Education Commissioner Russell Johnston said, "The draft regulations newly call on programs to admit students by a lottery when there are more applicants than available slots. If local districts have agreements about seat allocation in place with a career technical program, the program can run a lottery for each district that sends students. Under the proposal, middle schools in districts that send students to career technical high schools would also need to have a district-wide policy to make students aware of the vocational options." Johnston on Tuesday will present the draft regulations to the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, whose members will vote to solicit public comment. Some of the same advocates who have long pushed for changes are already vocal about their concerns with the proposal, arguing that it would fall short of fulfilling Governor Maura Healey's promise of fairer admissions. While the regulations would decouple admissions from attendance and discipline records, those criteria could still limit which students enter the lottery pool. Schools could exclude from the lottery students with 10 or more unexcused absences per school year, as well as students who were suspended or expelled for more than 10 days. The Vocational Education Justice Coalition cited attendance data from several districts and said the share of students with at least 10 unexcused absences is significantly higher in districts with large populations of students of color, warning that they would therefore be disqualified from the admissions lottery in disproportionate percentages. The insertion of 10 or more unexcused absences as a gateway for entry into the lottery negates any progress in eliminating grades, recommendations, and interviews. VEJC, whose members include groups such as the Massachusetts Teachers Association and La Colaborativa, wrote. It is the coalition's belief that the proposed revised regulations will result in the same discriminatory selection pattern we've seen ever since DESE began publishing admissions data. Healy administration officials said they crafted the regulations based on months of work and study, including several board meetings that focused on the career technical admissions process. In 2021, the board removed statewide requirements for programs to use grades, attendance, discipline records, and counselor recommendations as admissions criteria, but it didn't ban their use. 25 of the 29 career technical districts kept some selective criteria in place. Lawyers for Civil Rights and Center for Law and Education filed a civil rights complaint in February of 2023, arguing that the process remains unfair and prioritizes white, higher-income students who speak English as a native language. Over the past few months, our educators have engaged with the board and department to highlight essential work our schools and programs do to provide students with a necessary education and skills to help the Commonwealth meet its 21st century workforce needs, Stephen Sherrick, Executive Director of the Mass Association of Vocational Administrators Group, said on Thursday. Above all, we want to ensure that more students across the state are able to access these high-demand programs. We're currently reviewing the draft regulations and will reserve any specific observations for the public comment process. Healy has been pushing to place more emphasis and resources on vocational and technical education, part of what her team calls a Reimagine High School campaign. Her supplemental budget bill to spend surplus surtax revenue would direct $75 million toward career technical education, which officials say would add 3,000 seats in programs over 3 years. Another Healy bill funding public higher education capital improvements includes $100 million for grant programs that support high schools, colleges, and other institutions with career programs and workforce training. Massachusetts career technical education programs play an important role in our state's education system and economy. They provide students with the skills they need to succeed in today's job market and help us meet the workforce needs of our employers, Healy said in a statement on Thursday. Our administration has been engaging with families, educators, CTE schools, local officials, and the business community to determine how we can increase access to these programs and set all of our students up for success. Healy in January launched the Massachusetts K-12 statewide graduation council and charged the group with studying and making recommendations on a new statewide graduation requirement. Voters in November eliminated the requirement that high school students pass the MCAS exams as a prerequisite to graduation. Our next headline in the Cape Cod Times of February 24th, Study Shows Many Hurdles to Housing Permitting in Massachusetts by Michael Norton of the State House News Service. The process for permitting residential housing construction in Massachusetts is contributing to the state's lack of housing production and increasing costs because it is too lengthy, complex, and discretionary, according to a new study. Pioneer Institute researchers interviewed 22 planners, lawyers, developers, municipal and state officials, and scholars and concluded that the process, which largely falls upon local zoning control should be streamlined to reduce delays and dubious appeals. The study arrives as Governor Maura Healey's administration implements a 2024 housing law that featured policy changes and borrowing authorizations to make a dent in a housing production crisis that's existed for years, and it makes it more difficult for people and businesses to thrive here. The study, co-authored by Andrew McCullough, found that public hearings associated with housing production can sometimes stretch over years, and rezoning efforts face hurdles due to infrequent town meetings and mandated approvals from the Attorney General. Wastewater disposal, wetlands protections, and design review processes are also factors for some developments, the study said, and local decisions aren't always the final word. Plaintiffs can usually appeal to land court or another superior court, the study said. Developers often favor land court, where judges are seen as both more technically adept and more favorable, while opponents of development are more likely to choose superior court, where the lack of subject matter expertise makes it less likely that cases will be expedited. Study co-author Salim Firth said, "Many opponents will appeal, even if their claims have dubious merit, because developers often find compromise cheaper than delay," and suggested that help may be on the way in the form of bills awaiting attention this legislative session. The study recommends reforms such as limiting the scope of site plan review, reducing the required notice times for continued hearings, requiring abutters appealing land use decisions to submit a written opinion substantiating the appellant's allegation from a certified professional, and establish training requirements for local board members. Also in state news, unemployment claims in Massachusetts declined last week. Initial filings for unemployment benefits in Massachusetts dropped last week compared with the week prior, the U.S. Department of Labor said on Thursday. New jobless claims, which is a proxy for layoffs, fell to 5,365 in the week ending February 15th. That's down from 6,077 the week before, the Labor Department said. U.S. unemployment claims rose to 219,000 last week. That's up 5,000 claims from 214,000 the week prior on a seasonally adjusted basis. Kentucky saw the largest percentage increase in weekly claims, with claims jumping by 145.5%. Virgin Islands, meanwhile, saw the largest percentage drop in new claims, with claims dropping by 45.9%. Also in state news, gas prices unchanged for second consecutive week. State gas prices are essentially unchanged for the second consecutive week and reached an average of $2.99 per gallon of regular fuel as of February 17th. That's essentially the same as the previous week's price, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. The average fuel price in state has slightly declined about 3 cents since last month. According to the EIA, gas prices across the state in the last year have been as low as $2.95 on January 13th of this year and as high as $3.60 on April 29th of 2024. A year ago, the average gas price in Massachusetts was 5% higher at $3.15 per gallon. The average gas price in the U.S. for the previous week was $3.15, making prices in the state about 5.1% lower than the nation's average. The average national gas price is slightly higher for the same week, with an average of $3.13 per gallon. From the Cape and Islands section, as we keep it local, Massachusetts officials order gas companies to lower their bills, by Melina Khan. Officials from the Mass Department of Public Utilities have ordered gas utility companies to lower customer bills after many reported skyrocketing rates this year. In a letter Thursday, the department's commissioners ordered the state's 5 gas utilities to lower customer bills by at least 5% for March and April. The department said customer bills have reached unsustainable levels and attributed the high rates to increased supply costs, the recovery of unusually high programmatic costs through delivery charges, and a cold winter. Several Massachusetts politicians, including Governor Maura Healey, called on the DPU to lower rates in recent weeks. How much will gas bills go down and which customers will be affected? According to the DPU's letter, the state's 5 gas utility companies are being ordered to lower customer bills by at least 5% across the rest of the peak utility season. The letter's addressed to the following companies, so it will affect their customers: Berkshire Gas, Eversource, Liberty Utilities, National Grid, and Unitil. When will the gas bills go down? The 5% cut will apply to the rest of the peak heating season, excluding February. That means it'll be in effect for March and April. Why are gas bills so expensive in Mass? According to a letter to the DPU signed by more than 20 lawmakers last week, Eversource, one of the state's largest providers, attributed the increased rates to colder temperatures, increased usage, and rate adjustments implemented in November of 2024. The letter said some constituents had reported as much as a 27% increase in their bills this season. The next headline in the Cape and Islands section: Representative Moulton, submit taxes ASAP due to IRS layoffs, by Margie Cullen. With the IRS positioned to lay off thousands of employees, disruptions are likely this tax season. The layoffs are due to a hiring freeze that was set by President Donald Trump and were reported to primarily impact new hires. The labor shortage will definitely impact tax season, certified public accountant Richard Pone told USA Today. U.S. Representative Seth Moulton, a Democrat from Massachusetts, urged his constituents to file early. I would prioritize submitting your taxes ASAP if you want your returns back anytime soon, Moulton wrote on X. The tax accountants have always recommended filing your taxes early, but it may be even more important this year. Pone told USA Today that a worker shortage may mean that the processing paper returns could take double, triple, or quadruple the normal processing time of 6 to 8 weeks, and processing correspondence and amended returns, which already takes 4 to 6 months, could double. Processing paper refund checks could also take longer than the normal 3 to 4 weeks, he said. Democratic Senate Finance Committee members, including Senator Elizabeth Warren, Senator Bernie Sanders, and Senator Peter Welch, wrote a letter to the Trump administration on Tuesday urging them to end the IRS hiring freeze. It's nearly inevitable that this hiring freeze, compounded by layoffs and further reductions in staff mandated as a result of Elon Musk's unprecedented power grab, will delay refunds and degrade taxpayer service, the letter said. Millions of Americans plan their budgets around timely refunds every filing season. These reckless decisions on the part of Elon Musk and the Trump administration will likely cause serious financial hardship for people across the country. Where's my refund? And how to check my tax return status. On the irs.gov site, taxpayers who filed their returns can see their refund status on the Where's My Refund tool. To see the status, you must enter the following information: your Social Security or individual taxpayer ID number, the ITIN, your filing status, the exact refund amount on your return. Once the information is entered, you'll see one of the following: return received, which means the IRS received your return and they're processing it; refund approved, the IRS approved your refund and they're preparing to issue it by the date shown; and refund sent. The IRS sent the refund to your bank or you in the mail. It may take 5 days for it to show in your bank account or several weeks for your check to arrive in the mail. There's a bevy of reasons why a tax return might get delayed. Here are the most common reasons as per the IRS: if the return has errors, is incomplete, or is affected by identity theft or fraud; if the return needs a correction to the child tax credit or recovery rebate credit amount; the return has a claim filed for an earned income tax credit or additional child tax credit, or includes a Form 8379 Injured Spouse Allocation PDF; the time it takes a taxpayer's bank or credit union to post the refund to the taxpayer's account. When is the last day to file taxes? The 2025 tax deadline is April 15th. The IRS will determine the tax return's timeliness based on the timestamp in your time zone. If you submit paper returns, make sure they're postmarked by the due dates. Electronic filings need to be filed by 11:59 local time. Americans residing overseas have an extended deadline of June 16th. And we'll close our local news reading of the Cape Cod Times with two obituaries. The first is of Walter A. Silverman of Hyannis, formerly of Sandwich, who passed on February 17th. He was beloved husband of Barbara Silverman, who passed in 2012. He was a World War II Navy veteran stationed in Hawaii who enlisted before his 18th birthday. Thank you, Mr. Silverman, for your service. He was stationed on the USS Prairie, LCS, and on the USS Bountiful, AH-9. He's survived by his daughter and many family and friends. The services will be held March 2nd at 12 noon at Schlossberg Memorial Chapel, 824 Washington Street in Canton. The interment will be at Sharon Memorial Park. In lieu of flowers, please consider a donation to V&A of Cape Cod Hospice, P.O. Box 370, Hyannis, Mass. 02601, or a local charity of your choice. The other obituary in today's Cape Cod Times is of Joan Kimber of Brewster, who passed on February 16th, not far from her beloved sailing grounds of Nantucket Sound. Joan leaves behind her daughter Pamela Kimber of Laconia, New Hampshire, her son Philip Kimber, and many family and friends. Joan was born in Stoneham, Massachusetts, and spent her childhood in and around Marblehead. In 1954, she and Arthur married in Marblehead and spent many happy years with the children living in Lynn, enjoying their church community, working as a hairdresser, and sailing in Boston Harbor out of Nahant. They moved to West Hampton for several years, where Joan attended Holyoke Community College and studied art, a lifelong pastime. After art's retirement, the family moved to Hyannis, where they were active members of Hyannis Yacht Club and St. David's Episcopal Church in South Yarmouth. During these years, Joan worked in public supportive housing in Cambridge at 116 Norfolk Street Community Home. After Arthur's death, Joan moved to Brewster to be closer to her son and grandchildren. Joan always had a ready laugh, and one of her favorite things to say was, "Onward ever, backward never." Joan was deeply loved and will be missed. And with that, we have come to the end of our reading of the Cape Cod Times for today, Monday, February 24th of 2025. This is your reader, Eric, saying be well, be safe, look after each other. Remember our veterans, especially those we've lost recently. Bye for now.